Mediterranean house gecko. Generally found in North African and Southern European regions, the typically purple to tan Mediterranean house gecko has large round eyes and dark spots. They don't grow very big, achieving a length of at most 4 to 5 inches in adults, so they are perfectly fine to be housed in a 20-gallon tank. Some of the members of this species have unintentionally migrated to several parts of Texas due to the ports that host European ships that travel to the Americas. The fact that they live around humans on ships makes them more adept to live around them in homes too. They have, over time, adapted to be comfortable with that, and a hardy species to begin with. They make great pets because they like being around people, are not shy like day geckos, and with good care can live up to 5 to 10 years, even in the care of a beginner. Chaa Gecko. Another gecko species that typically resides in rainforest treetops is the Chaa Gecko, another variation of the New Caledonian gecko species. Their name comes from their scientific classification of Rhacodactylus chaua. Some people affectionately refer to them as chewies. The chaua family is generally comfortable around humans, friendly, and fine with being handled, occasionally. Though it's a good idea to carefully approach an adult who hasn't been handled as a juvenile with caution, as they might be jumpy. They can grow up to 10 inches and live for as long as 2 decades. Their biggest downside, however, is that they are very expensive, especially as juveniles, set at about a $2,000 price point. Common house gecko. Also known as the Asian house gecko, the common house gecko visibly resembles its Mediterranean cousin, having similar large eyes with no lids and tan bodies. However, unlike the Mediterranean variants, they come from Asia rather than Europe, though they also have managed to find their way to Texas and Florida. They are nocturnal animals and are drawn to light sources at night, which is where they can be seen most. This is the case because their primary source of nourishment, bugs, are also drawn to nighttime lighting environments. They're already adjusted to living in homes, so they do well at adapting, being fine with sharing spaces with human residents. They do not, however, like being handled. They are content with seeing humans around. They only grow to between 3 and 6 inches and are low maintenance enough to be kept by beginners and still live for up to 5 years. Chinese cave gecko. The red-eyed Chinese cave gecko is a fine choice for a beginner owner. Stemming from the same genus as the African fat-tailed gecko and the leopard gecko, the Chinese cave variant is not as common as his cousins, but just as easy to take care of. They're typically ranging in color from brown to purple, with yellow and black spots and bands on their bodies. They tend to grow no more than 8 to 9 inches in length. What makes them especially appealing pets is that they're docile, not territorial, shy, yet tolerant of occasional handling. They are nocturnal, so they don't require any special lighting, and unlike many reptiles who need 80 degrees Fahrenheit plus temperatures, they thrive at room temperatures inside a mere 10-gallon enclosure. This makes them hard and resilient, with a typical lifespan of about 15 years. Gargoyle Gecko. Another great gecko species for beginners is the Gargoyle Gecko. They require basic husbandry, are simple to feed, and tolerate the occasional handling, which is different from most species on this list, and are not crazy about human interaction. Perhaps the most interesting aspect about the Gargoyle Gecko is that they have a lead-like appearance, with their snake-like eyes complementing their mottled brown skin color. This species is among the finest in blending with tree trunks, not an overly surprising fact considering their coloration. They are semi-arboreal, which means they can live on the ground or up in trees. They are nocturnal, which is easier on owners who don't need to provide special lighting for them. Just maintain temperatures between 70 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit. They tolerate handling and are simple to care for overall, making them great beginner pets. They can grow to between 7 and 9 inches and live for as long as 2 decades. African fat-tailed gecko. As noted earlier, a relative of the Chinese cave gecko is the African fat-tailed gecko, though they look like a smaller version of the leopard gecko. They come from riverbanks and savannas of West Africa and they make great pets for beginner owners for a host of reasons. These include ease of care, slow mobility, great temperaments, simple feeding and housing requirements, and they don't require special lighting. These docile geckos can grow to an adult size of 7 to 9 inches, and in good care, survive as long as 10 to 25 years. Crested Gecko. Of all the geckos in the Rhacodactylus genus, the crested gecko is the most popular. They're named as such thanks to the distinguishing crests that run along their backs, starting all the way up at their eye line. These crests are not simply decorative either. They actually serve the purpose of keeping dirt and dust out of their way. They have large round eyes atop their triangular heads. They actually clean their eyeballs by licking them with their tongues, though this is not an uncommon trait for most geckos. Their snake-like eyes are generally of a pale orange hue, complementing their sunset yellow coloration. Their well-rounded characteristics make them great beginner pets. They like to live alone, are nocturnal, so no special lighting necessary, are easily cared for, docile, and are fine with frequent handling. They grow 6 to 10 inches in length and have a lifespan of approximately 15 to 20 years. Leopard Gecko. For our money, the best gecko pet is the leopard gecko, and not just among gecko owners, but reptile owners in general, especially when they're the first of that variety. A lot of this has to do with their calm demeanor. Most first-time keepers reported overwhelming success with this species. They're easily fed, afflicted by very few health ailments, and don't require a large tank. They don't even need special lighting since they're nocturnal. While they're named for the beautifully spotted bodies and hail originally from southwestern Asia. However, most that are kept as pets actually come from being bred in captivity. This species has a variety of colorations and morphs. The ones found in the wild have white bellies with yellow to tan bodies adorned with dark brown spots. Most interestingly and distinguishingly, their eyelids move, which isn't something many geckos can do. That means they don't need to lick their eyeballs to keep them clean. They are tame and docile, growing between only 7 and 10 inches. Within the care of a good keeper, they can live from 1 to 2 decades. What is the right gecko choice for you? Geckos make great and extremely interesting pets. While many species look similar, their care needs are quite different, as are the habitat they need to thrive and their personalities. To best take care of the animal, for its safety and the owner's, the keeper needs to understand multiple gecko types to determine which suits them best. A few factors of consideration include the price. Some are far more expensive than others, with leaf-tailed, chahuas, gargoyles, and lychees being the most expensive, while the leopard, frog-eyed, flying, crested, and house geckos being the cheapest. While the majority of the geckos we discussed are easy to take care of, some get intensely stressed when handled. Others, like the crested, African fat-tailed, Mediterranean ground, gargoyle, and leopard geckos, are various versions of tolerant of it. For beginners, handling smaller species is recommended. Some geckos will require more extensive husbandry than others, and some have longer lifespans than others. Depending on the wants and situations of the owner, one can choose which gecko suits their home and care best.